Join the conversation with the Morning Majlis, Pulse 95.
Yeah, join the conversation with the Morning Majlis. Now, this is going to be an interesting discussion because it affects a lot of us. It affects not only the UK, but it affects our morale in general, because the UK's announcement yesterday saying that we are going to remain in the red list conditions, which means that there is going to be mandatory hotel quarantine for any of the travellers coming from the United Arab Emirates to the United Kingdom. Now, the UAE's ambassador to Britain was not pleased, and neither were we.
No, he wasn't, and he has all the right not to be, because in a statement that he issued on Twitter, he said the UAE is one of the safest countries in the world in relation with COVID-19. And summer is a key season for Emiratis and the hundreds of thousands of Britons living in the UAE to visit the UK. So he said, I hope that trade and tourism will soon resume, as well as the opportunity for families and friends across our two nations to reunite. Now, about 15 countries were added to UK's list for quarantine-free travel starting from May 17th, which included Portugal, Iceland, Singapore, and Australia. Now, passengers arriving from red list countries, including the UAE, sadly, they're required to quarantine at a government-mandated hotel for 10 days at a cost of £1,750 per adult. That's a bunch of us.
So expensive.
That's like about 9,000 dirhams per adult. So it's a lot of money. And also in a previous tweet, the UAE ambassador, Abul Hol, said that he had praised UAE's vaccination efforts, stating that the UAE has made significant strides in its own vaccination program, but it's now vital that we work just as hard to support others around the world. Now, experts said the decision will negatively impact travel and tourism between both countries, and that is for sure.
Yeah, definitely a high price indeed. And the move has been criticized because the United Arab Emirates, as you noted, its vaccination campaign, it's next level. It's the world's second fastest vaccination campaign. And also here in the United Arab Emirates, we're seeing falling infection trends. So the criticism here is the UK's decision just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And yes, it has real consequences as well for Brits who live in the United Arab Emirates and their and their family members, that is. 120,000 of them live here in the country, and now if they're going to have to go back to the United Kingdom, it's going to be a costly quarantine for them. So yes, a decision that has drawn a lot of criticism and also has implications for passengers who could use the United Arab Emirates as a transit for their travel as well.
Yeah, the quarantine's cost is about £1,750 per person, not even just a facility.
9,000 dirhams per person.
Yeah, so not just a facility for you and your family to use, but per person, that's going to be the cost. And there is no other option. So that's a very, very costly affair. And a lot of the Brits like to travel back to the UK for their Eid al-Fitr holiday, especially this time around. The private sector is getting off from Tuesday. So imagine if you did the tactical way of booking today and tomorrow off. You had a big chunk of some time off, and you could have gone to the UK and had a nice little Eid break, but sadly that's not the case. Now, looking at the importance of the corridor between the UAE and the UK, 6 million people travelled between those two countries last year, well, pre-pandemic levels. But if they close this corridor, it affects a lot of us, and it affects not only our business sector, but our own sentiments, because we like to travel. So far, the idea and the argument that Grant Sharps and the entire the Conservative government is putting forward is that this decision is not based on the COVID-19 situation in the United Arab Emirates, but more on it playing a role as a hub. But our other routes are closed. We can't fly to Australia yet. We can't fly to India yet. And those big areas are closed. So it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it would have been a nice lifeline for our aviation connections to have the UK opened up.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially considering the fact as well that according to reports, most UK citizens who work in the United Arab Emirates are already fully vaccinated as well. And we're seeing a lot of campaigning from airline officials as well as the Consul General here in the United Arab Emirates for the removal of the country from the red list. Now, some slight hope here is the United Kingdom is expected to assess its ban on non-essential international travel from May 17. So we might see some destinations receiving a tick of approval, ones that hadn't received that prior. That's something that we'll keep an eye on. But already we're seeing petitions and very sharp criticism for keeping the United Arab Emirates on the red list for the UK.
Let's listen in from the horse's mouth in terms of why this decision was made. And this is Grant Shapps, the MP and the Transport Secretary in the United Kingdom, having a say on the matter.
So I'm glad to be standing here today announcing the first, albeit tentative, steps towards unlocking international travel. We want a summer in which, with the help of vaccines and testings, we can reunite family and friends, travel to places we love. We want to start looking outward again. Whilst COVID has isolated us, travel reunites us, even if video calls have kept us all connected during the very long lockdowns. There's simply no substitute for human contact. Travel is, of course, also absolutely crucial to rebuilding our economy, bringing long-awaited relief to hard-hit airlines, airports, the tourism sector, which taxpayers have spent £7 billion in supporting.
Well, that was Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary in the United Kingdom. But a weird situation indeed in terms of why they've made this decision. It is going to affect a lot of us. It's going to affect the country. I have a feeling it's all political. They said, okay, let's make that money from the people. Let them come in because they will come in. But let's see what happens, though. Let's come back after the business news headlines. We'll continue the discussions. And up next, we're talking about Pfizer and the decision in the EU. This is the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Well, on to Europe to discuss the vaccine situation, and a pretty big story, in fact, as the European Union has cemented its support for the Pfizer-BioNTech and its novel COVID-19 vaccine technology by signing a massive contract extension. They are going to be getting 1.8 billion doses through 2023. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said her office has approved a contract for a guaranteed 900 million doses, with the same amount of doses as a future option as well. This new contract has the unanimous backing of the 27 EU member states. It will entail not only the production of the vaccines, but also making sure that all the essential components are going to be sourced from the EU.
That's right. And looking at the European Commission, currently it has a portfolio of 2.6 billion doses from half a dozen companies. Now, Pfizer had an initial contract of 600 million doses with the EU. Now, but this announcement, it also underscores the confidence that the EU has shown in the technology behind the Pfizer vaccine, which is different from how the Oxford, for example, AstraZeneca vaccine works. And von der Leyen said at an EU summit in Portugal about this. She said that, but of course, we will also explore other contracts, for example, based on other technologies like the protein-based technologies. So the key point is to keep our options open. Now, the active ingredient in the Pfizer shot is messenger RNA or mRNA. It contains the instructions for human cells to construct a harmless piece of the coronavirus called the spike protein. And the human immune system recognizes this protein as foreign. Thus, it will allow it to mount a response against the virus upon infection. Now, going back to this announcement of this huge contract extension, it comes as the EU is looking for ways to meet the challenges of providing the necessary booster shots to people who have already received a vaccine shot, which expands vaccination drives to include children and teenagers as well, and also the emergence of possible new virus variants as well that everyone is battling with right now all over the world, really. And looking at the size of this contract, as Ahmed mentioned, 1.8 billion doses for a block of 450 million residents. They will provide, or it will provide, for a lot of options, for sure.
The big question here is, again, look at the size, 1.8 billion doses. That's huge. And for 450 million residents, so if you double that figure, you reach about 900 million. But what's the other one for? That's a lot of doses that the EU is ordering as well. Now, another thing is a top recommendation for Pfizer is make sure that you do respect the contract, because they have a notorious history of getting fed up with you if the contract is not being abided by, that it turns out that there is going to be a mass media campaign against a particular vaccine as well. Now, speaking of vaccines, the major story that took place over the weekend was a Sinopharm.
Yes.
Shout out to us, shout out
That's
to
right.
Julfa, shout out to Ras Al Khaimah, that has been approved by the World Health Organization. So there's going to be a big push, because it is also the first vaccine to be developed by a non-Western country to win such a massive backing as well.
That's right. It was approved by the World Health Organization, and this emergency listing is a signal to national regulators that a product is safe and effective, and it also allows it to be included in COVAX, which is a global program to provide vaccines mainly for poor countries, which has hit supply problems as well. And looking at a statement from the WHO Director General Tedros, he told media in a briefing that this expands the list of COVID-19 vaccines that COVAX can buy and gives countries confidence to expedite their own regulatory approval, and also to import and administer a vaccine as well.
Yeah, and this is also a big deal because the World Health Organization had previously only approved the vaccines made by Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and Moderna. But this is all about poorer countries. We're talking about Africa, we're talking about Latin America, and a number of countries in Asia as well. They've already approved Chinese jabs for emergency use, and the World Health Organization said it had already validated the, quote, safety, efficacy, and quality of the Sinopharm jab that is developed by the Beijing Institute of Biological Products. Looking at other vaccines as well, and going slightly back to the EU, in the press conference, Ursula von der Leyen said that the European Commission is, aside from Pfizer, it's in talks with Moderna, Novavax, Valneva SE for additional shots. Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson's not looking so good here. The deliveries remain sparse as investigations continue into contaminated batches at a U.S. plant. Now, the goal for the EU, according to von der Leyen, is she expects enough doses of all vaccines to inoculate the big bulk of the EU's population. She expects them to be available by July.
I think getting a vaccine is a perfect Eid al-Fitr gift at this stage. Get everyone get inoculated and get back up and running so far. But what we'll do now is, guys, shout out to all of you who've been taking part in our quiz this morning as well, is to give you the chance to win the 500 dirhams courtesy of Pulse 95 Chamber. Shout out to Farouk Ahmed, shout out to Hashim Abu Zahra, shout out to Ali Shams for texting us this morning. Shout out to Roxana, and shout out to Javed as well for getting involved in the texts to this morning, or the riddle question. So let's hear the riddle once again, shall we?
Yes, so here it goes. Text us the answer at 4215. The riddle is: I am always in front of you, but you can never see me. You hope for the best for me, but you can never predict me. What am I? Text us the answer at 4215. You stand the chance to win 500 dirhams, courtesy of the Sharjah Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Pulse 95 Radio. And start texting now. The answer is going to be revealed later on at 9:30 p.m. in the evening Karak Show.
Yeah, we don't know the answer. We're not informed of the answer, but we have an idea of the answer based on your responses, and we have a vague idea of the answer based on our own imagination. It seems to be a very lighter one today.
Yeah, pretty
easier
simple.
one.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, an easier one. So shout out to Monkey Wise Monica for getting us that question drafted this morning. Do text us on 4215 to take part in this. What will happen is once you text the right answer, followed by your name, and if you want, followed by where you would like to spend your 500 dirhams, we then put you into a draw, and then the team at the Evening Kodak will pull out the name and the number and then give you the prize accordingly. And that'll be a perfect way to conclude the holy month of Ramadan for the winners as well. Up next, we talk about the situation in South Asia, in Pakistan, as well as in India. What's going on? All of this will be discussed right here on the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Yes, this is Pulse 95. Welcome back on to the Morning Majlis, and we definitely have something to talk about, especially when it comes to strengthening bilateral ties and also forging new agreements between two countries that will definitely benefit them. Now, we're talking about Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan's visit to Jeddah as he sat down with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and they have signed an agreement to establish the Saudi-Pakistani Supreme Coordination Council. Now, ahead of this visit, Pakistan's cabinet on Tuesday approved the establishment of the council, a body created for streamlining bilateral cooperation between the two countries. And that is to remove hurdles to investment deals signed during the Crown Prince's visit to Pakistan back in February of 2019. So during this meeting, an MOU it was signed in the field of combating illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, and also chemical precursors between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. So they've definitely signed a memorandum of understanding on this. And commenting on this agreement or this MOU, they have said that another MOU for financing eligible projects in the fields of energy, infrastructure, transportation, water, and communications between the Saudi Fund for Development and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan was signed as well.
Yeah, and around the same time as this visit, Pakistan also yesterday, in fact, began a 9-day shutdown affecting travel and tourist hotspots in an attempt to control COVID-19 cases during the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. Now, Pakistan is already battling a third wave of infections and is increasingly nervous about the situation. And what we're seeing now is Pakistan imposing the most severe restrictions since April last year. And according to reporters, all businesses across the country will be closed. People will also not be allowed to go into the markets to do their shopping for Eid as well. And analysts say that the primary reason, or one of the primary reasons for the government's decision to impose this is the fear that they will not be able to cope with another surge of COVID-19 infections due to a possible lack of ventilators and oxygens should the situation get as bad as it did in India.
Yeah, look, they say that the number of cases are not as high as India. As of the 9th of May, and for today, the figures say that 3,785 new cases were reported, and that's after conducting only 40,000 tests. The positivity rate at this stage stands at 9.29%. Using that stats, if you do a lot more tests, similar to how many we do here in the United Arab Emirates, about 160,000 a day, your number could be a lot higher. So it is a cause of concern. So they shouldn't be sat down and with their feet up and relaxing and thinking, okay, you know what, just the lockdown's going to sort it. You do need your hospital beds to be getting up to standards, because at the moment they're saying that the hospitals are operating at close to capacity, and they've had to rush to increase the number of intensive care beds in the country.
Yeah. And this is a very restrictive lockdown that Pakistan is imposing as businesses, hotels, and restaurants, as well as parks, are going to be closed. Even public transport is going to be affected here between the provinces and the cities. Public transport has been halted, and the military has been fully mobilized to monitor the restrictions and ensure compliance. One notable aspect is that mosques will remain open. Authorities reportedly fear that restricting access to mosques may anger some people. Pakistan has already recorded more than 850,000 infections and 18,600 deaths, and reportedly has limited testing capacity, and the healthcare sector could possibly struggle with another surge of COVID-19 infections. So they are taking a preemptive move here to try and prevent what has happened in neighboring India.
Yeah, so in India, as per the latest figures for today, 403,738 new cases have been reported. 4,092 new fatalities also reported over the past 24 hours as several states imposed strict lockdowns to curb the spread of the virus. So the situation in India is not good at this stage as well. It's particularly when you see foreign embassies asking their staff to leave the country as well. According to some stats emerging from the US embassy, 200 of their staff members contracted the virus, COVID-19, during this little phase. It's not a little wave at all, but it is. That's the latest emerging from the U.S. Embassy. Other embassies such as Germany and Poland have also approved voluntary departure of their government workers from the crisis-hit country. Well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We shall return right after the news headlines. And if you're one of those still looking at the skies to be concerned about when this Chinese rocket is going to land, the debris has landed west of Maldives, according to the Chinese authorities, so you don't have to worry about it. And we'll talk to you about what actually happened right after the news headlines. You're listening to the Morning Majlis, only on Pulse 95.
Stay fit. Stay fit. Stay fit.
Well, more on the fallout from the European Super League situation and its collapse. Three ball clubs, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus, have hit out at UEFA, European football's governing body, accusing them of, quote, applying intolerable pressure to ensure the collapse of the proposed and controversial European Super League. The three clubs are the only founding members of the ESL to continue their involvement in the project after the other 9 football teams swiftly withdrew following fierce and widespread criticism. Yet while these other 9 clubs, namely England's Manchester City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, and Arsenal, as well as Spain's Atletico Madrid and Italian sides Inter Milan and AC Milan, all those teams issued apologies for their involvement. The other teams, Real, Barca, and Juve, have released a joint statement attacking the European governing body for causing the ESL to collapse.
Yeah, Barca, Juve, and Real Madrid, they have said that they are ready to reconsider the proposed approach, but reiterated their stance that the structure of elite football in Europe, its appeal to younger generations, and the financial pressures facing clubs need to be addressed. They said that we would be highly irresponsible if, being aware of the needs and systemic crisis in the football sector, which led us to announce a Super League, we abandoned such mission to provide effective and sustainable answers to the existential questions that threaten the football industry. So the material issues that led the 12 founding clubs to announce the Super League weeks ago have not gone away. That's according to them. They said to honor our history, to comply with our obligations towards our stakeholders and fans, for the good of football and for the financial sustainability of the sector, we have the duty to act in a responsible manner and also persevere in the pursuit of adequate solutions despite the unacceptable and ongoing pressures and threats received from UEFA. And the clubs also said that they regret to see the other 9 clubs now found themselves in such inconsistent and contradictory position when signing a number of commitments to UEFA.
Yep, of course, and that's going to be the reality at the moment. But speaking of big games, we are looking forward to the big final between Manchester City versus Chelsea for the UEFA Champions League. But we saw that same teams play head-to-head last night. It was Manchester City versus Chelsea, and it was Manchester City's chance of winning the Premier League title, but it was Sergio Aguero who missed the penalty, and that made Man City not lift the guaranteed lifting the title, but so that's happened yesterday, and it was Chelsea winning the game 2-1 in that encounter. So a bit of a trailer to what to expect in the main final. Another thing that really is out there for La Liga, Atletico Madrid stay atop, and they are in contention with Barcelona. But in boxing, we saw Mr. Saul Canelo Alvarez beats Billy Joe Saunders in the 8th round encounter, in 8-round boxing bouts.
Yeah, Canelo Alvarez truly special here, and finished the previously undefeated Billy Saunders as well, so he's getting a lot closer to becoming the first undisputed super middleweight champion in boxing history, and he did this in clinical fashion, applying constant pressure, slowly breaking down Saunders and forcing his corner to throw in the towel at the end of the 8th round. Another boxing fight on the horizon, believe it or not, is going to be YouTuber Logan Paul and boxing legend Floyd Mayweather.
I saw that coming.
That is a spectacle, a circus fight, and they've been hyping it like crazy. We saw Jake Paul take Floyd Mayweather's hat in a press conference leading up to a brawl as well. I think it's pretty hilarious. The fight is going to be a joke, but I won't keep my eyes off it. I think it's going to be hilarious to watch.
Good fun. I'm definitely looking forward to that fight as well.
Back to football. Big fans of Neymar, the Brazilian footballer. Now they'll be happy because he has agreed a new contract extension with PSG until 2025. And he just happens to be the world's most expensive player. He claimed 3 League One titles with the Parisians, but has yet to win the Champions League since arriving in 2017 from Barcelona for $270 million, and what remains the most expensive transfer in history. So him commenting on him staying in Paris Saint-Germain, he's saying, "I'm really pleased to continue my adventure at PSG. I'm very happy in Paris and proud to be part of the squad, to work with these players, a great coach, and to be part of the history of this club."
I treated myself to a FIFA 21 as an Eid gift, by the way.
Oh, you did?
I tried to buy him as during my career mode for Newcastle. Couldn't afford him.
How much is
even
he?
in the game, you couldn't afford him.
No, it was I think it's above 200 million or something. It's
Yeah.
crazy
Oh,
amounts,
goodness.
yeah. My budget was 20 million for not a chance. But it happens.
Where are you playing, Newcastle?
I'm playing Newcastle.
They had a really good game this weekend.
Yes, they did.
Hammered Leicester City.
Exactly. What a fantastic finish for Newcastle. And now Steve Bruce is in line for winning the Manager of the Month award, even though people were hating on him a while ago. But that's the world of sports, indeed, and that's the world of Morning Majlis. We shall be returning right after a bit of a long break, and we'll be back again tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m.
We certainly will, and if you'd like to catch our conversations, they'll be uploaded on our podcast pages on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast. Just type Morning Majlis in the search bar. We're also going to be uploading our videos live on YouTube at Pulse 95 Radio. Thank you all for tuning in, and see you tomorrow.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.